started like any other long haul. Just me, my rig, and the highway stretching endlessly through the Black Nevada desert. I'd been driving trucks for nearly 15 years, and I'd seen it all: crazy weather, sketchy roadside stops, and even the occasional hitchhiker who gave me the creeps. But nothing prepared me for what happened that night. It was just past midnight when I took a job hauling cargo from Salt Lake City to a small town in California. The dispatcher warned me the load was sensitive, but didn't elaborate. That wasn't unusual. Truckers are paid to drive, not ask questions. So I fueled up, checked my CB radio, and hit the road. I made good time, cruising along the empty highway under a full moon. Then, somewhere past Tonopah, I saw the headlights. First, I thought it was another trucker behind me, but the way the lights moved, it wasn't right. They'd fall back, disappear, then suddenly reappear much closer. Too close, like whoever was driving was playing some kind of sick game. I grabbed my CB and switched channels. This is Big Mike, rollin' west on 6. Whoever's tailing me, you want to back the hell off. Silence. The lights disappeared again. My heart pounded as I checked my mirrors, scanning the dark highway. Nothing. Just the vast, empty desert. I exhaled, chalking it up to exhaustion. Maybe I was just seeing things. Then my radio crackled. A voice, low, distorted, slithered through the static. You should have left that trailer behind, driver. I nearly jerked the wheel. Who the hell is this? Silence again. Then bang. Something slammed into my trailer hard, sending a shockwave through my rig. I gripped the wheel, trying to keep control as the whole truck lurched. My headlights barely caught a glimpse of something in the road ahead. A figure, standing right in the middle of the highway. I slammed the brakes, tires screaming against the pavement. But as I did, the headlights flickered just for a second, and when they came back, the figure was gone. I sat there, heart hammering, my knuckles white on the wheel. The radio crackled again. Turn back, driver. Last warning. I should have listened. I really should have listened. I sat there, my truck idling on that lonely stretch of highway, sweat slicking my palms despite the cold desert air seeping through the vents. My eyes darted between the mirrors, searching for anything, headlights, a shadow, whatever the hell that thing in the road was. Nothing. The CB crackled again, but this time, all I heard was deep, labored breathing. Then click. Whoever it was cut the transmission. I wasn't about to sit around and find out what came next. I threw the rig into gear and gunned it, my tires screaming as I picked up speed. The highway ahead stretched into darkness, but I didn't care. I just needed to go. For the next few miles, everything seemed normal again. The strange lights were gone, the road was empty, and I started to convince myself that maybe I was just overtired, my brain playing tricks on me. Then my headlights cut out. Panic surged through me. The engine still hummed, the dashboard glowed, but the road ahead was pitch black. I flicked the lights on and off. Nothing. High beams, nothing. And then, in the mirrors, I saw them. Headlights. But these weren't normal. They were too high, like they belonged to something much bigger than a truck. And they weren't behind me anymore. They were beside me. I turned my head, my stomach twisting into knots. The road was still black, my headlights refusing to work. But now I could see something moving next to me. A shape, huge. Not a truck, not a car. Something with too many legs. The moonlight caught a glint of metal, but there was something organic beneath it, like flesh stretched over machinery. The thing kept pace with me, its long, spindly legs moving too smoothly for something that size. And then it looked at me. I don't know how to explain it. There was no face, no eyes, but somehow I felt it looking right at me. The radio came alive again. The same voice, but clearer this time, as if whoever or whatever was speaking was right next to me. "We warned you, driver." Then bang. My trailer slammed sideways, like something massive had just rammed into it. My truck tilted as the wheels lifted on one side. I gritted my teeth, fighting the wheel, trying to keep the rig from flipping. Just as fast as it started, it stopped. The truck slammed back onto all 18 wheels, skidding along the asphalt. The headlights came back on, and the thing was gone. I didn't stop. I didn't check my trailer. I just kept going, pedal to the floor, pushing my rig faster than I'd ever dared. And that's when I saw the convoy. Up ahead, on the side of the road, 3 trucks sat in a line, engines idling, lights off. No markings, no company logos, just massive black rigs. As I approached, their headlights flared to life, blinding me. The CB radio crackled one last time. "Drop the trailer, driver. This isn't your haul anymore." And then I knew I had been set up. I had 2 choices. Drop the trailer and walk away, or keep driving and find out what happens when you piss off something that can black out your rig, shove an 80,000-pound truck sideways, and speak to you through the goddamn CB. I made the only choice that made sense. I kept driving. The second my foot hit the pedal, the convoy trucks moved, all 3 at once, like they were controlled by the same invisible hand. Their engines roared, and they pulled onto the highway, forming a blockade across the road. No way around them, no way through them. "Shit," I muttered, my mind racing. If I stopped now, I was dead. If I turned back, whatever had been stalking me before would be waiting. That left only one option: the desert. I yanked the wheel hard to the right, sending my truck off-road, tires exploding into a spray of dust and gravel. The whole rig bucked and jolted, the trailer swinging wildly behind me as I plowed through the open desert. The radio screamed, "Stop the truck, driver." I killed the CB. Behind me, the convoy followed. I didn't understand how they were keeping up. Their rigs were heavier, slower. But when I glanced in the mirror, I saw why. They weren't driving anymore. They were gliding. The wheels weren't turning. The trucks floated over the ground, engines howling like some kind of animal. The headlights weren't normal either. They weren't beams of light anymore. They were eyes, burning, red hot, tracking my every move. The desert ahead sloped downward, opening into a dry riverbed. If I could make it there, I might have a chance to shake them. I pushed the truck harder, the frame groaning in protest. The trailer bounced, metal screeching against metal. Then the latch blew. I felt it before I saw it. The trailer snapped loose, the sudden loss of weight making the cab lurch forward. I barely managed to keep control as the trailer twisted, flipping onto its side, skidding across the dirt in an explosion of dust. I checked the mirror and my blood turned to ice. The convoy didn't stop. They didn't even slow down. They surrounded the wreckage like a pack of wolves, their massive black rigs shifting, their forms bending in ways no machine should. The headlights, the eyes, all locked onto the trailer. Then they tore it apart. Not with tools, not with hydraulic arms, with hands. They had hands. Metal fingers sprouted from the frames of the trucks, twisting and writhing, peeling the trailer open like a can of meat. Inside, something pulsed, something alive. I didn't wait to see more. I gunned the engine and tore off into the desert. I don't know how long I drove. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. But eventually, the radio stayed silent. The mirrors showed nothing but darkness. And the convoy was gone. Epilogue: I made it to a truck stop just outside of Bakersfield, parked the rig, and locked myself in a bathroom stall. Hands shaking, heart pounding. The next morning, I called my dispatcher. "Trailer's gone," I told him. "I'll wire back the advance. I'm out." He was quiet for a long time. Then, in a voice that was too calm, he said, "Understood," and hung up. I never heard from that company again. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm parked at some empty rest stop, I hear a sound in the distance. A low, rumbling growl, like an engine that isn't really an engine anymore. And I know they're still out there. I didn't stop. Not for miles. My rig screamed through the desert, every bolt and rivet rattling as I bounced over the uneven ground. My hands were white-knuckled on the wheel, my eyes locked on the stretch of darkness ahead. I wasn't even looking in the mirrors anymore, because I already knew what I'd see. That convoy wasn't human. Those trucks, whatever they were, had torn my trailer apart like it was made of tinfoil. I'd glimpsed something inside before I peeled out. Something pulsing, moving, something alive. And the way those things had ripped into it, their metal hands writhing like insects. No, I wasn't gonna think about that. Not now. I had one job: get back to civilization. I pushed the engine hard, praying I wouldn't sink into soft sand or blow a tire. My truck wasn't built for this terrain, and every second I spent out here increased the odds of breaking down. And if I broke down, I was dead. The CB hissed. First, it was just static. But then, through the crackling white noise, I heard it. The voice, low, warped, crawling into my ears like oil seeping into my skull. "You were never supposed to see that, driver." My breath hitched. I yanked the CB cord out of the radio, but the voice kept coming. "You're not going back." Then boom, something slammed into my truck. The whole rig tilted to the side, and for a moment, I was sure I was about to roll. My trailer was gone, so I had no weight stabilizing me anymore. But just as quickly, my wheels crashed back onto solid ground, and I fought to steady the wheel. I risked a glance in the mirror. Something was behind me. I don't even know how to describe it. Not a truck, not a machine. It was bigger now, twisted, crawling on long, metal appendages, each one stabbing into the dirt like the legs of some enormous insect. The headlights burned white-hot, but I could see movement behind them, something shifting under the metal plating, as if the truck itself was just a shell for whatever was inside. And it was gaining on me. I floored it. The engine screamed. My speedometer climbed, but the thing kept up. Then ahead, a road. A real one. Asphalt. Civilization. I swerved toward it, tires kicking up dirt, the transition from sand to pavement nearly shattering my suspension. My whole body slammed into the seat as I fought for control, but somehow, somehow, I kept it straight. I risked one last glance in the mirror. The desert behind me was empty. No creature, no convoy, no lights, just dust, like nothing had ever been there at all. But I knew better. I kept driving, rolling into the nearest town, pulling into a gas station under the dull glow of a neon sign. I parked, killed the engine, and sat there, breathing. My hands were still shaking. I stepped out of the cab, my legs weak. I needed to clear my head to see normal people, something to remind me that I was still in the real world. The gas station was mostly empty. Just a bored-looking cashier behind the counter, a couple of tired travelers filling up their tanks. I went inside, grabbed a bottle of water, and took it to the register. The cashier barely looked at me as he rang it up. "That all for you?" "Yeah," I muttered, reaching for my wallet. Then he froze. His eyes locked onto my truck outside. His face paled. His hand trembled as he reached beneath the counter. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he asked, "Where the hell did you get that rig?" The cashier's question hung in the air like the smell of burnt rubber after a wreck. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" His eyes flicked between me and my truck, parked under the buzzing fluorescent lights of the gas station. His fingers drummed against the counter, hesitant. Then, without looking away, he reached under the register and flipped the security camera monitor around. I felt my stomach drop. On the screen was the live feed from the parking lot. My truck was wrong. It looked normal at first. Same chrome grille, same mud-splattered doors. But the headlights weren't reflecting the gas station lights. They were absorbing them, like two holes cut into the universe itself. And then, as I stared, the truck breathed. Not like an engine shifting, not like a cooling system kicking in. The whole frame expanded and contracted, slow and deliberate, like lungs, like it was alive. The cashier muttered something under his breath. I didn't catch it. I was too busy watching my rig. The truck I had driven 1,000 times, the truck I had trusted with my life. Twitch. One of the side mirrors twisted on its own, not like a broken part dangling loose. It turned toward the store, toward me, like it was watching. I took a step back from the screen. "You got a back exit?" The cashier nodded. "Come on." I didn't argue. We slipped through a door behind the counter, out into a dark alley behind the gas station. The second we were out of sight of the truck, I felt like I could breathe again. But I didn't stop moving. "Tell me what's going on," I said as we walked, my voice tight. The cashier, his name tag read Dale, shook his head. "I don't know, man, but I've seen rigs like that before. Maybe twice. They roll through in the middle of the night, no drivers, no plates. The cameras don't pick up their numbers. He swallowed. And the guys who drive them, he stopped. I turned to face him. What about them? Dale hesitated. Then he took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, his voice was dead serious. They don't leave town. They don't get to. The words hit me like a brick to the chest. I should have laughed it off, called him crazy. But after what I had seen on that highway, after what I had felt chasing me, I knew he wasn't lying. I had escaped that thing in the desert, but I hadn't left it behind. I had brought it with me, and now it wanted me to finish the haul. A distant rumble made my blood turn to ice. I turned my head and saw my truck moving on its own. It was rolling away from the pump, turning slowly, deliberately, until it was facing us. The headlights flared to life, burning like twin suns. And then the engine revved. Dale grabbed my arm. Run. We tore through the alleyway as my rig peeled out of the parking lot, coming straight for us. And that's when I realized I wasn't driving my truck anymore. It was driving me. The roar of my own engine chased me down the alley. A deep, guttural sound that didn't belong to any machine. It sounded hungry. Dale and I ran like hell. I could hear my rig's tires screeching as it turned the corner, barreling after us like a predator on the hunt. This way. Dale yanked me toward a rusted chain-link fence at the end of the alley. He jumped, scrambling up like his life depended on it, because it did. I followed, my hands slipping on the metal links as my boots struggled to find a hold. Behind me, my truck didn't slow down. It didn't even try to turn. It was going to plow straight through the damn fence. I threw myself over the top just as the rig hit. The fence exploded inward, twisted metal flying in every direction. I hit the ground hard, Dale grabbing my jacket and yanking me to my feet before I could even groan in pain. We ran through the dirt lot behind the gas station, stumbling over broken concrete slabs and old junk. I risked a glance back. My rig wasn't stopping. It twitched, not like a truck hitting rough terrain, not like a machine at all. The chassis bent, flexed, its frame pulsing in the dark like a breathing thing. The headlights, those empty black holes, widened. And then the truck spoke. Not through the CB, not through speakers. It spoke with the sound of its engine. A deep, low growl that twisted into words, vibrating through the air like metal being ripped apart. You never finished the haul. I almost fell right then and there. My truck was talking to me. Dale grabbed my arm, yanking me forward. We gotta lose it. How the hell do you lose a semi? I shouted back, but I didn't stop running. We cut through an old industrial yard, dodging rusted-out trailers and dead forklifts. The truck couldn't follow through the tight spaces. Not directly, but it was still moving. I saw it in glimpses between the gaps, its frame shifting, squeezing through spaces it shouldn't have fit, like it was rearranging itself, like it was becoming something else. Dale led us toward a half-collapsed warehouse at the edge of the lot. The doors were already off their hinges, the inside a mess of broken beams and old machinery. I followed him in, ducking behind a pile of rusted metal. We held our breath. The truck stopped outside. The engine idled, low and rumbling. Then silence. Dale and I exchanged a look. After a long minute, I risked a peek around the corner. The truck was gone. Just gone. But my gut told me it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Dale exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. Man, what the hell was that? I shook my head, still trying to process it. Then a noise. Not from outside. From inside the warehouse. Slow, metallic creaking. I turned and saw something moving in the dark. Something big. Something waiting for me. The sound was subtle at first. Just a slow, rhythmic creaking, like metal straining under its own weight. But the longer I listened, the more I realized it wasn't just a sound. It was breathing. I turned slowly. Something huge shifted in the shadows of the warehouse, barely visible through the maze of rusted beams and rotting machinery. Not a truck. Not anymore. It was becoming something else. Dale grabbed my arm, his fingers like a vice. We gotta move. His voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded. We crept between the rusted remains of old forklifts, weaving through the dark. The air smelled wrong, like burnt rubber, oil, and something organic. And behind us, the thing that used to be my truck was moving. A metallic scrape, a low, warping groan, the sound of something unfolding. We reached a side door, a rusted-out exit barely hanging onto its hinges. Dale pushed on it, nothing. He threw his weight into it, still nothing. Then, from the darkness behind us, tick, 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 a sound like claws tapping against concrete. I risked a glance over my shoulder, and my stomach dropped. The shape that had once been my truck was hunched low, pressed between two collapsed support beams. It was too big now, its frame stretching, twisting. I could see hints of headlights, but they weren't lights anymore. They were eyes, and they were locked onto me. I shoved Dale aside and threw my shoulder into the door with everything I had. The rust gave way and the door burst open, spilling us out into the night. We ran. Didn't matter where. Didn't matter how far. We just ran. And behind us, that thing followed. It didn't move like a truck. It didn't move like anything that should exist. It was crawling. Metal limbs unfolding from the chassis, stretching out like spider legs, stabbing into the ground, pulling its body forward in sharp, jerky motions. I could hear it ticking, like something mechanical deep inside was winding tighter. And then it spoke. Not with a radio, not with an engine, with something worse. A voice that wasn't a voice. A deep, metallic rasp that made my whole body lock up in fear. You never finished the haul. Dale turned his head just for a second, just long enough to see it. And that was a mistake. He tripped, hit the pavement hard. I stopped, my heart hammering. Get up. His eyes were wide with panic as he scrambled backward. Go. Just go. But I couldn't leave him. I grabbed him by the jacket, yanking him up, and then I felt it. A cold, steel grip wrapped around my ankle. I looked down. A metallic limb had unfolded from beneath the truck creature, wrapping around my leg like a vice. The texture was all wrong. Smooth like polished chrome, but warm, like something alive. And it was pulling me toward the thing that used to be my truck. Dale screamed. He grabbed onto me, pulling against it with everything he had. My leg burned as the grip tightened. Then bang. A gunshot. The grip jerked, and suddenly I was free. I tumbled backward, gasping for air. Dale had a gun. A rusty old revolver. He must have grabbed it from behind the gas station counter. The creature lurched back, a dark, oozing liquid spilling from where Dale had shot it. But it wasn't blood. It was oil. And the truck, no, the thing screamed. Not an engine roar. Not metal grinding. A scream. Something high-pitched, mechanical, and alive. Dale fired again. Bang. The creature shuddered, its limbs retracting. Then, with a final, unnatural jerk, it twisted its body and skittered back into the dark. We didn't wait to see where it went. We ran. This time, we didn't stop. And when we finally reached the edge of town, when we finally saw streetlights and other people, I collapsed onto the pavement, gasping for breath. Dale dropped the revolver. His hands were shaking. Neither of us spoke for a long, long time. And when we finally did, I asked the only question that mattered. What the hell was that? Dale shook his head, still catching his breath. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said, I don't know, but it wanted you, man. I swallowed hard, and deep in my gut, I knew he was right. Whatever that thing was, it had my name on it. And something told me this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I never went back for the truck. Dale and I stuck together for a few days, both of us too rattled to be alone. We holed up in a cheap motel on the edge of town, barely speaking, barely sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The thing that used to be my rig. The shifting metal limbs, its hollow, starving headlights. And worse, I heard it. A low, distant rumble, like an engine idling just out of sight. It was waiting. On the third night, Dale woke me up, shaking my shoulder. His face was pale, his eyes wide. Mike, your truck is here. My stomach clenched. What? I saw it. Out by the highway. It just pulled up. It's waiting. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see it again. But something deep in my gut told me this was it. My last chance. The final haul. I stepped outside, heart pounding. The motel parking lot was dead quiet, the neon sign flickering above. I walked past the rows of parked cars, past Dale, past everything that felt safe, and I saw it. My rig, sitting at the edge of the road, engine humming, lights low, waiting for me. It looked normal. No twisting metal, no shifting limbs. Just a regular truck. The same one I'd driven for years. But I knew better. I turned to Dale. "You got more bullets for that gun?" He nodded. "You're not seriously?" "I have to." I cut him off. "It's not gonna stop, man. Not until I finish the haul." Dale stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled sharply. "Then I'm coming with you." I didn't argue. We climbed into the cab. The door hinges creaked in protest, like the truck itself was breathing me in. The moment I sat in the driver's seat, the dashboard lit up. The engine growled low and deep, but it didn't resist. It wanted me here. The GPS flickered to life. The screen glitched, the destination flashing random symbols before settling on a single word. Tartarus. I didn't know what that meant. I started driving. The last stretch, the road stretched empty and endless before us. No cars, no towns, just darkness swallowing the highway whole. The radio clicked on. Static. Then the voice. "Finish the haul, driver." Dale gripped the revolver tight. "Who the hell are you?" Silence. Then the CB crackled again, and the voice returned. But this time it wasn't just one. It was many. Hundreds. Thousands. Layered voices. Whispering. Speaking. Pleading. "Finish the haul, driver. We never made it. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop." The air inside the cab felt thick, suffocating. I clenched the wheel tighter. Then the road changed. It wasn't asphalt anymore. It was something older. The pavement cracked and split, revealing blackened stone, worn smooth by centuries of wheels. The air smelled wrong, thick with smoke and something sour. And ahead I saw them, the other trucks, dozens of them, hundreds, rigs just like mine, stretching into the horizon, rolling down this cursed road in perfect, endless formation. Drivers sitting in the cabs, or what was left of them, hollowed out faces, eyes black and empty, trapped, endlessly hauling. I felt my body going numb, my hands locked on the wheel, my foot pressing the gas on its own. The road was pulling me in. This was where the lost truckers went. The ones who took the wrong job. The ones who vanished without a trace. I was about to be one of them. Then bang. The windshield shattered. Dale fired again. Bang. The CB screamed. 1,000 voices crying out in rage. My body jerked free. "Get us out of here," Dale shouted. I didn't think. I just turned the wheel. The truck fought me. The engine roared. The cab groaned as if something deep inside was being ripped apart. I floored the brakes. The world twisted. The truck skidded sideways, the tires screaming against the cursed road, and then, just like that, we were back. The highway was normal again. No other trucks. No black stone. Just empty road stretching into the desert. My rig was dead. Smoke poured from the engine, the dashboard lights flickering out one by one. I climbed out, shaking, my legs barely holding me up. The truck sat silent, broken, and I swear to God, as I looked at it one last time, I saw it breathe. Then finally it stopped. The end of the road, Dale, and I never spoke about it again. We hitched a ride to the nearest town, dumped my truck at an old scrapyard, and never looked back. I quit trucking after that. I don't drive at night anymore. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear it. That low rumble, far off in the distance. A convoy that doesn't belong to this world. Hauling something no one should ever see. And I know it's still out there, waiting for another driver to take the job.